Hello and welcome to this webinar, Sustainability is the Key, part of our series where we talk about all things sustainability to help suppliers access the NHS. We've talked about carbon reduction plans, we've talked about modern slavery, we've talked about evergreen, we've talked about social value. So if you want to know anything more about any of those, please go and have a look at one of our other webinars. And it's all about how to unlock your organisation's potential to deliver tender success. In this one, we're going to look at the whole of your global carbon footprint, because this is where we're heading and what the NHS is asking suppliers to do. So this is just our short version. Introducing myself, I'm Sarah Joy Newton. I'm an adult and paediatric nurse. I used to be a sales representative. I'm now an expert in public procurement requirements and an experienced tender bid writer. So I can help you with all elements of net zero, social value, modern slavering, and all important tender bids. So the next NHS England milestone on the supplier roadmap requires suppliers to report on emissions for their global operations and all 15 categories of Scope 3 by April 2027. This is our bite-size webinar. It's just a really short one to give you an overview of what you're being asked to do and why you're being asked to do it. And following that, if you want to know more information and get into a bit more detail, we have another webinar which you can have a look at, and that one's about 25 minutes long. So if you want to go and understand a bit more in a bit more depth, please feel free to head along to that one. In this one, we're just going to talk over the top level and just to get you an idea of what you need to be doing. So in 2020, the NHS said that they were going to be the first net zero health service, and they were going to do that by 2045. And what that meant was they needed to get all their suppliers on the journey too. The reason being is their Scope 3 category of purchase goods and services is where all their supply chain sits. And as you can see from this large area of blue in the pie chart, medicines, medical equipment and other supply chain, that's a huge chunk of their carbon footprint, and that is suppliers to the NHS. So they can't get to net zero by 2045 without you working with them to deliver that. The first thing that we saw in terms of compliance around this was the requirement to produce a carbon reduction plan. And this was in June 2021 with PPN 0621. And now we have PPN 006, which was released in February 2025. The PPN is the same. You have to report on scopes 1, 2 and a subset of scope 3 greenhouse gas emissions, commit to being net zero by 2045. You need to detail your environmental management measures in your carbon reduction plan and publish it on your website. So the NHS supplier roadmap, this is the important one. From April 2027, the next milestone, all suppliers will be required to publicly report targets, emissions, and publish a carbon reduction plan for global emissions aligned to the NHS net zero target for all of their Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. So what does that mean? It means you probably have a carbon reduction plan already, so it means you have to expand your boundary. At the moment, you're just asked for a UK boundary. You need to expand that to a global boundary. This is an infographic from the GHG protocol. You're looking at your Scope 1, 2, and all 15 categories of Scope 3 emissions on this picture diagram here. Your Scope 1 emissions are your direct emissions from sources owned or controlled by the organisation. So if, for example, cars, furnaces, boilers. Scope 2 is your indirect emissions from the consumption of purchased electricity, heat or steam. And this is the biggie, Scope 3. There are 15 categories. Those categories are purchase goods and services, capital goods, fuel and energy related activities not included in Scopes 1 or 2, upstream transportation and distribution, waste generated in operations, business travel, employee commuting, upstream lease assets, downstream transportation and distribution, processing of sold product, use of sold products, end of life treatment of sold products, downstream leased assets, franchises and investments. Currently, under PPM 006, you will be reporting on categories 4, 5, 6, 7 and 9. For the new milestone, you need to expand that to all 15. Not all 15 are going to be relevant to your organisation, and that's absolutely fine. As long as in your report, your background report, your methodology, you explain why, and in your carbon reduction plan, you say that you've looked at that category and that it's not relevant to your organisation and why it isn't organisation to you. Also, looking at this, what you need to think about is collecting the data. So looking at data collection, this is in order of the of how good the data is. Primary data directly from the supplier or service provider. Secondary data, databases, ideally internationally recognised. Environmentally extended input or output data. This is a vague way of calculating, but there are conversion factors that provide emission data that you can find and use. It's mainly spend data. So for example, if you spend £10 in this SIC code, which is your business code, like used in Companies House, then it will equate to X number of emissions. DEFRA has some, but they are currently quite a bit out of date. So you would then need to use the Bank of England information to rationalise to what the current spend would be. And then finally, you could also use proxy data. Proxy data is where you have a conversion factor for something. It's similar to what we do, so we'll translate that across. Obviously, this is quite a lot of information that you need to be gathering. In terms of timing, when we look at the supply roadmap, April 2027, what that means is that from when you do your carbon reduction plan in January 2027, you need to include all 15 categories of scope 3 and your global emissions as the boundary. So what that really means is from January 2026, you need to know where that data is, know which emissions are relevant, and start calculating it throughout the year of 2026. So in January 27, you can report on that data, and then in April 2027, you will then be compliant against the roadmap. So this is where we're looking. This is why we're talking about it now. We know that we need to start looking at where those emissions are, where the data can be found, and start reporting it throughout the year of 2026, so that then we have that information. We have a supplier solution for you. So our supplier solution, we have a platform called Track My Carbon. It's a self-managing platform, and you can use it to produce a compliant carbon reduction plan if you already have the data. If you don't have the data, or you don't know where to look any further, then please get in touch. We can just start with you with an initial project of looking at what categories in scope 3 are relevant to you, what the data looks like, where you'll find it, and then you may have enough information following on from that you can then go and do that internally and manage that yourselves. If you need some more help, then obviously we can help you further with that, and we can help you create your global full scope 3 emissions carbon reduction plan that's compliant. So please get in touch if you need any more help. Thank you for your time, and thanks for watching.